Before I get started with the story, let me give a shout out to Trini07 in the Discord for sending me this story. Now, this story right here is going to make you probably want to throw up when you hear the details of it. And what prompted me to do this story is another story that I did about, I think, 2 years ago now. And I'll go into detail about that once I kind of get into this story. So in this picture, you see two people by the name of Bob Lee Allen and Thomas Evans Gates. Now, these two men are very familiar with each other, mainly because both of these men are a couple. Yes, these two men are in the academy. They are married to each other, but they are also deadly at the same time. So what happened was these two were involved in a botched castration that they performed on somebody, basically an illegal castration of a person. And it got discovered, and now one of them has been sentenced to 12 years in prison, and the husband, who offered to snitch or basically be an informant, got released from jail. Honestly, I don't believe either one of them should be out of jail, and 12 years, in my opinion, is not enough. Now, the reason why this story sounds so familiar to me, not because of this story right here, but because it reminds me of another story I did 2 years ago. If y'all were around when I did this story, it was a story that happened in South America. I forgot what country, where you had these two women who were also in the academy, both married to each other in Hall L, who had adopted this little boy, and they performed a illegal castration on him to do a so-called gender reassignment surgery on him. And the boy ended up dying. And both of those women are now in jail, and hopefully for the rest of their lives, and hopefully they getting tortured while they are there as well. The same should be happening to these two sickos that you see on your screen. So now I'm gonna go ahead and read this article. Bob Lee Allen, age 54, was previously set for trial on Monday at LaFleur County District Court, but struck a plea deal with prosecutors on August 31st and was jailed Tuesday. An Oklahoma cannibal, I'm sorry. You know, I skipped. Let me go back and read, because it was one paragraph that I skipped. An Oklahoma cannibal who castrated a volunteer with his husband at a holiday cabin before freezing his victim's testicles and talking of eating them has been jailed for 12 years. Did you hear that? A castration of a volunteer, and froze his testicles and said they was going to eat them. What in the Hannibal Lecter am I reading right now? Allen's husband, Thomas Evan Gates, age 43, who handed Allen the surgical tools during the makeshift operation, was freed on time served Tuesday after admitting misdemeanor maiming last month. The plea deal for Allen came after believed a jury might convict me before his trial was set to take place. Gates agreed to testify against his spouse to reach a plea agreement. It is unclear if the couple's marriage, held in September 2020, just a month before the botched operation, has survived Gates' willingness to snitch. Now look at that. They got married in 2020 and committed the act the following month. Like, they didn't waste no time. The couple performed a castration surgery on October 12, 2020 at their Airbnb cabin called Bob's Weekends Wonders Mountain Retreat on a 28-year-old victim who they found online. The volunteer still remains unidentified, with the couple subsequently charged because they were not licensed to perform surgery. According to the volunteer, Allen had advertised that he performed the surgeries and that he videoed them for his own pleasure on his website, Eunuch Maker. These are some sick individuals. So I'm guessing the volunteer, they wanted some kind of gender reassignment surgery. Maybe they were trying to transition, I guess. And this is what he came up with. My thing is this. To the person who's the victim, why would you go and try to get a surgery done by people that you know are not qualified to even perform such a surgery? Like, that's the same thing we say about these women going out here getting these back alley botched butt lifts. And you want to go and meet these two in an Airbnb cabin for a castration? It's almost hard for me to even feel bad for the victim in this case, because you willingly went to some randoms. Not to a hospital, but to a cabin. And let me continue. And then he said on his website called the Eunuch Maker. That's all I needed to see. The volunteer traveled from Virginia to the cabin in Oklahoma for the surgery, which Allen said he'd perform for free. Red flag, another red flag. You want someone to perform this surgery on you for free? They are literally cutting your dick and balls off. And you said for free. This person must have been desperate. DailyMail.com previously revealed that the pair list the cabin on Airbnb, which he calls Bob Weekend's Wonders Mountain Retreat. He said that Allen assured him he'd done the surgery many times, telling him no ER, no morgue. He was awake for the 2-hour procedure and had only received numbing injections in and around his genitalia. This is why I said it's hard for me to feel bad for the victim. Like, what were you thinking? Like, there is no way. First off, I would never, ever even dream of having a procedure like this done even on myself. Fuck that. I value my equipment. I need it. Second of all, you went there, traveled from Virginia to Oklahoma, and for something that you saw was for free. You believed every word that these men were saying. You did not go to a hospital to get an actual procedure done. But you wanted to go all the way to Oklahoma, to another time zone halfway across the country, to get this procedure done. Now, like I said, now I'm looking at the person, the victim, quote unquote, sideways. And to me, the only reason that these two really got caught is because it went wrong. If it went right, this wouldn't even been a story. But let's be real here. There was no way this was going to ever go right. And I bet you this is probably the first time and hopefully the last time they will have ever performed this kind of procedure. And if they performed it before, I'm going to need some other people to, well, they might be too embarrassed to say something. And then they said he was awake for the procedure. He only got numbing injections. He wasn't even asleep. He did not have any type of anesthesia. It's hard for me to really feel bad for this person. It's not like they found him, snatched him up, knocked him out, and then did it. It's not like the story with the 2 women in Hall L who did this to a child who couldn't defend himself. This person is a grown man, 28. The earliest known eunuchs were castrated 2,000 years before the birth of Christ in Samaria, an ancient nation which is now part of Iraq. Kings ordered the procedure carried out on servants or slaves to make them reliable workers who could be trusted to guard female royals and dignitaries. Some fetishists continue to practice this voluntary castration as part of extreme body modification culture. Others remove their genitals entirely and subsequently identify themselves as nullo, meaning they're completely devoid of genitals or a smoothie. Some nullos claim losing their penis and testicles actually enhances sexual pleasure, and they are still able to urinate through an opening left in their mutilated privates. Online body mod communities offer there would be eunuchs and nullos the chance to meet other people like them or unlicensed surgeons who are often fellow fetishists willing to perform the gruesome amputations. You know what this reminds me of? For anybody who's watched Game of Thrones, doesn't this remind you of the Sullied? If y'all didn't know who the Sullied were, they were basically warriors who they had their private areas cut off before they even went into battle. And I believe they did that because they did not want them to engage in any type of sexual activity with, well, at that time, anyone at that point, because they were engaged in all kinds of behavior to make sure that their mind was right. And it's crazy. It was a funny but also kind of sad scene in, I think, season 6 of Game of Thrones, when one of the main warriors, I forgot his name, he was one of the few black herders on the show, who was dating the only other black female on the show, whose name was Masande. And when he tried to have sex with her, it was just odd. It just didn't work because he didn't have a private part. So the only thing that they could really do was, well, the only thing he could really do with her was pretty much finger her and give her oral. That was about, she couldn't even really give him oral because he didn't have nothing down there. You know what? Let me keep going. Those of you who watch Game of Thrones, if you know, you know. Let's see. Doctors have understandably warned people off performing the procedure, saying it is medically unnecessary and carries an extremely high risk of infection or bleeding to death. Allen allegedly advertised the service on his own website, offering free surgical services. Once it was over, Allen reportedly told the volunteer he was going to eat his penis and that he kept others in a freezer. Those testicles were later found in a freezer during a police search, although it is unclear if Allen followed through on his statement about eating any of them. Afterward, the makeshift surgery, the volunteer lost a considerable amount of blood, but Allen told him he would not take him to the hospital, claiming instead he would dump him in the woods. He also told him once of a man who he'd left to bleed out on the table overnight because the man was crazy. Well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? It is unclear if Allen was joking. Allen claimed to have 6 other people on their way to the cabin to undergo the surgery. Eventually, they decided the man needed medical care, so they dropped him off at McAllister Regional Health Center, where he relayed the story to the staff. The pair then tried to visit him in the hospital. They told him to tell doctors that he performed the procedure on himself, according to charging documents. Police searched the cabin on October 15th of last year and found a freezer in Allen's bedroom which contained testicles. They also found a 6-foot-tall medicine cabinet full of various medications, medical utensils, mushrooms, and pill bottles, a cautery tool with blood, xylocaine, and more. Allen and Gates were charged with conspiracy to commit unlicensed surgery, felony, practice medicine without a license, unlicensed surgery, which is a felony, maiming, unlawful use of a communication facility, distribution of CDS, including possession with intent to distribute, assault, and battery with a dangerous weapon, failure to bury dead human member, misdemeanor, possession of controlled dangerous substance, unlawful possession of drug paraphernalia, which is also a misdemeanor. Allen pled no contest to felony counts of conspiracy to commit unlicensed surgery, practicing medicine without a license, and attempted distribution of psychedelic mushroom. He also pleaded no contest to 2 misdemeanor counts and was sentenced to 2 years in jail and 10 years in prison. He also owes more than $5,000 in fines and other costs. The felony maiming charges and 2 misdemeanors were dropped as a result of his plea deal. Gates, who was released Tuesday, owes more than $2,000 in fines and costs. He previously pled guilty to 3 misdemeanor charges to prosecutors on August the 4th. This story right here is just mind-blowing. And to think stuff like this here actually happens, but mainstream media doesn't talk about it. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. These 2 men right here are in the academy, and I have not heard the academy say a peep about this. But I'm not surprised that they haven't, considering they really didn't make that much noise about Ed Buck. And if they did, they didn't make enough noise. But they made a lot of noise about the baby. They made sure everybody knew about that. And he didn't even do an ounce of what Ed Buck or what these 2 did. Now, granted, all parties involved with this are equally as dumb as the last. The victim is dumb for even going through with this. And these 2 right here are just sick. But I think the one right here on the left, the one smiling, I think he's the ringleader. You can tell, like, he's just smiling in his pictures. And he's just enjoying this. As a matter of fact, it is. So this guy right here, this is Bobby Lee Allen, and this is Thomas Evans Gates. So this is the main person right here who was like literally behind the whole thing. And this is his husband who snitched on him. And that's why he got released and he's still in jail. But honestly, neither one of them should be released. But yeah, that's, man, this is some wild stuff right here. Really, it really is. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments.